It's not as bad as I thought it would be, but it's just as disappointing as I knew it would be. Hey guys, Jeremy here with a review for Sicario 2, The Day of the Soldado. This is a sequel that I didn't think was going to happen. I thought the first film was great as a standalone movie, and I loved the first Sicario film. But there was something that one person, I think it was Chris Stuckman, pointed out was, if this movie had been made with anyone else, with any different actors, different directors, different writers, different DOP, this film could have possibly been a straight-to-DVD movie. Because the first one had literally A-listers in terms of quality and amazing film content. We had Emily Blunt, Josh Brolin, Benicio del Toro, and then for director we had Denis Villeneuve, who's a fantastic, one of the most acclaimed directors right now. We had Roger Deakins killing it on DOP, and then we had Taylor Sheridan, who is the writer. And Taylor Sheridan has proven himself to be a pretty good writer at writing very simple but intriguing stories. Hell or High Water, Wind River, which was a great movie last year, the original Sicario. When they said they were making a sequel, I was immediately skeptical because it just didn't look like it was going to be that great. It wasn't shot by Roger Deakins, which you can tell almost within the first 5 minutes. They try to shoot it like Roger Deakins, but it just doesn't have that same color, that same light, that same feel that Deakins did. The DOP of this film had an impossible task, trying to match up to Roger Deakins, and that's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But he tries his best, and he does have some good long shots. There are some shots that are reminiscent of the first film, as well as some really intriguing camera work in terms of long takes, but the color palette is, you can notice that it's gray. There's not a lot of color in this film. It's very gray, very brown, with a little bit of blue here and there, but it's definitely not the same as it was in Sicario. The director of this film does try to match what the feeling was of the film, if not more so. In the first film, Emily Blunt was basically us. We were the observer. We were the person who, well, most of us are in favor of the law and doing things by the book, but as we saw through that film, that doing so does not get anything done. That Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro's work is what unfortunately makes changes in some situations, and that was what was such a great part of the film, was that moral complexity. The second film doesn't really have that anymore. It really is just Josh Brolin doing really dark shit. Like the beginning of the film, after there's this terrorist attack that happens, Brolin goes to this area and interrogates this guy, and he says, I'm not going to lay a finger on your head. Instead, he brings up a computer and he shows his family members being looked at through a drone camera. He's like, I could do this all day. And again, very dark writing, very intriguing character though. Brolin is just as interesting in this film as he was in the last. He actually has a bit of an arc with his character in this film, rather than just being the dark op guy. He actually has some moral conflictions, mainly with his relationship with Benicio del Toro, who is also very good in this film. He has a great arc with his character. Admittedly, it's a little bit like Logan, which kind of detracted me from the film a little bit, because there's this relationship with him and this daughter who they kidnap in an attempt to try and make the gangs in the Mexico cartel try and fight each other. It doesn't work out as well as they would like, and Benicio kind of in the end becomes her protector. And again, it's kind of like a Logan arc. It's not as long and it's not as on the nose as it is, but it definitely has a little bit of dips here and there into that. There are some very cool sequences in this film. They try to replicate that of the border scene, that whole scene where they go over and get that guy and they come back to the border from the first one. They have something similar to it in this second film, and it's all with just driving cars again. So great use of tension. The music is basically copy and pasted from the first. The music, which is basically copy and pasted from the first film again, is great at adding the tension to the scene. However, when stuff goes down, when the gunfights happens, it's all inside this Humvee, which is cool because it reminds me a bit of Children of Men, because it's a long take. But then they keep looking at the girl in the car, and at first it's like, okay, yeah, I get it, but then she's just sitting there kind of with her mouth open in terror and confusion, and it's like, okay, what about what's going on inside, guys? So that was a bit of a detractor, and I think it's maybe One, trying to vary itself from the first film. As the first film was, there's a lot of open world storytelling. We're learning about the world of the cartels in that film. And this one, it's a much more focused, more singular characters. That is shown through how the film is shot. And while some may enjoy that, for me, there's a few times where I'll just be sitting there going, okay, you did it better in the first film. And the film does not try to hide that at all. It does not try to hide the fact that it is taking things from the first film. In the first film, we had that cop character, right, with his family, and the whole time we kept on coming back to him and wondering what was his inclusion to the story. And it turned out that what he represented was, while he may be a great father figure, a guy who is a policeman who looks to be on the side of right, he is just as susceptible to crime and the greed and the inclusion of the cartel as anyone else is. The second time around, it's a kid who is being pulled in through his family, his extended family, and he's being used to help traffic people over the border, and is then, in a way, being set up to be a Sicario himself. So that is actually, I'll admit, a bit of a better payoff than the first one was, because admittedly the cop, you kept on wondering what was going to happen, and then all of a sudden he kind of got shot in the conclusion of his story in the first film. The second one, the kid has a much better arc, and I will admit that. Sicario 2 does its best to try and make itself its own while paying homage to the first film that set the groundwork, but unfortunately it has that problem of just being the sequel to a fantastic movie. So every time throughout the entire film, you will constantly be thinking about the first film, either from its color palette to how it's shot, to the actions of the characters, to how the story plays out. There is a few twists and turns here and there throughout the film that will admittedly trick you. There's one that I did not see coming, and I was pretty impressed with that. But aside from that, the film just kind of suddenly ends, and it is just an average film. It's an average Sicario film. The first film was fantastic because of what was in it. This is exactly what would have happened with the first film had it had not as many great people in it. So in the end, I'm going to give Sicario 2 a 4 out of 7. I enjoyed it. It's a decent entry into the series. Does slightly set up some interesting ideas for the third one, because the third one is going to come. It will be directed by a different person. It will have a different DOP, because apparently that's something that the writer, Taylor Sheridan, has talked about, that there's going to be a different storyteller each time. He's going to be the same writer, but the director, DOP, will be different every time. So, again, now there's a bar that's been set right here. Sicario was here, Sicario 2 is here, so the third one maybe might be here. Anyways, guys, that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, leave a like, and if you're interested in more, maybe subscribe. Anyways, that's all from me. I'll see you guys next time.